Welcome to Movie Explainer. In today's video, we will be going through the 2018 action superhero film Venom. It's time to recall. Let's get started. The film begins with a space shuttle from Life Foundation catching up to the fire and crash landing in eastern Malaysia, delivering four samples of symbiotes Mayhem, Scream, Riot, and Venom. After the Life Foundation alerts the police about their space shuttle, medics arrive in the area and retrieve one survivor, astronaut J.J. Jameson III. When Jameson is placed in an ambulance, something that hooked on him comes to life and attacks everyone within, forcing the car to flip and crash. An EMT emerges from the debris, now infected with symbiote, an alien parasite, and starts to approach the Life Foundation, who launched the space shuttle. In the next scene, we meet reporter Eddie Brock in San Francisco, who lives with his fiancée Anne Wang, a lawyer who is poised to represent the Life Foundation and its CEO Carlton Drake. Eddie Brock is well known for his television news shows The Eddie Brock Report, in which he investigates events and shares them with others. He works differently than others, and as a result, he is well liked by his co-workers. Eddie's supervisor sends him to interview Drake when he gets to work, but he instructs Eddie not to ask Drake any questions about his work or anything else unrelated to his return with some positive news. Anne asks him the same, since she knows Eddie can be hot-headed, which is what got him driven out of New York. Later that night, when Eddie wakes up late to drink water, he discovers an email on Anne's computer with information about 3 verified deaths as a result of the shuttle crash. He also learns that the Life Foundation has been performing deadly experiments for the past few years, and if that continues, many innocent people would become victims. He then notes down the important information and decides to ask them in the interview with Drake. Eddie goes against orders to interview Drake about his space travel program and begins questioning Drake about the deaths and how he is responsible for them. An angry Drake then ends the interview and Eddie is asked to leave. Eddie then informs his supervisors about the fact and his boss fires him due to his fear of Drake. Anne is also fired from her work as a result of Eddie's mess, which leads to the end of Eddie's and Anne's relationship. When the EMT returns to Malaysia, he stumbles into a local market and begins to endeavor an eel, and symbiotes create a sword around her arm and she cuts the vendor's throat after vendor chases for it. Onlookers try to retaliate by attacking her, but the symbiote releases quill that everyone kills in the area. The EMT then approaches an elderly woman and the symbiote kills the EMT and hooks into the elderly woman. 6 months later, Drake is continuing his symbiote study by conducting tests on homeless people. He speaks to one person named Isaac to make it appear as if he is embarking on a monumental mission for humanity. Drake unleashes a symbiote into Isaac's room and allows it to take over his body. This is all being witnessed by the Foundation staff, including Dora Skirt, who seems to be frightened by the act. Isaac appeared to be well for a while before convulsing and the symbiote departs, Isaac's now dead corpse having devoured his organ. Elsewhere, Eddie is now jobless and living alone in a little squalid apartment in San Francisco. He travels to a local business where he knows the clerk, Mrs. Chen. But Eddie notices that she is continually being stolen of her money by a thug and he is powerless to stop it because the attacker is armed. Dr. Doris Kurth, a Life Foundation scientist who is disturbed by Drake's experimentation on humans, approaches Eddie. She begs Eddie help in exposing Drake, but he refuses since he has lost interest in whatever happens to humanity. Pursued by security officer, but he now looks to have increased strength and agility, allowing him to run very fast. When Drake and his team discovers Maria's body, they realizes there is a symbiote specimen on the loose. Drake ultimately finds out that Skirth was the one who brought Eddie to the Foundation without his consent. Drake persuades Skirth to reveal that Eddie was involved, and then he locks her up in a cell. Eddie begins to get strange symptoms. He has unusual appetite for strange foods, for example, frozen tater tots and rotten meat. And he has a fever and begins to vomit. A low snarling voice begins to talk to him as well. He finds Anne and Dan on a date where he shows his abnormal behavior by going through other people's meal and then sitting in a lobster tank eating a real lobster. Anne and Dan believe they must assist Eddie later. Dan performs an MRI on Eddie, but the tests frequently create a terrible distortion in his head. Hence, Dan calls a halt to the test and instructs Eddie to return home safely. In the apartment, Eddie is in pain again, and his neighbor plays his music too loudly. Eddie goes to advise him to lower the volume, but he is mocked until the symbiote transforms Eddie's face into a horrific appearance. At which point the neighbor agrees. Meanwhile, Treese and his henchmen break into Eddie's house and apprehend him. Eddie attempts to give up, but the symbiote has a different idea. Eddie finds himself fighting the goons unwillingly with the help of the symbiotes as Treese and his henchmen attack. Treese records this to show off to Drake, who is blown away by Eddie's symbiote's capability. As more of Treese's men arrive, Eddie exits his apartment. Eddie is then pursued through the city while attempting to locate a motorcycle to ride. Until Treese rams his car into Eddie's, the symbiote assists him in taking out the goons and maneuvering around the streets with ease. As he gets closer to Eddie, the symbiote takes over his entire body, turning him into Venom. Another goon shoots at Venom before he can kill Treese. Venom leaves Treese but bites off the goon's head and then escapes. Eddie ends up near a lighthouse where he magically heals his broken bones. He is embarrassed at seeing a man's head chewed off, but Venom, what the symbiote call itself, speaks to him and says he is a superb host. Eddie is told that if he wants to live, he merely needs to comply and assist Venom in returning to its rightful place, that is space. At night, when Eddie tries to meet his boss for giving him the evidence of a Life Foundation laboratory, he is stopped by the guard. Eddie seeks Venom's assistance to reach the top of his former workplace in his flat and notices that it's a crime scene, and she takes him to Dan's office for additional assistance. Eddie has a problem and she knows it. Eddie is instructed by Venom to speak with Anne, and Venom has developed a liking for her. Eddie apologizes for his mistake, but Anne says it's not the right moment. Later, Dan performs a second test on Eddie and discovers that the symbiote is a parasite, which Venom does not like to be called. and activates a high frequency that causes the symbiote to get away from Eddie's body after Dan informs him that he and the symbiote are essentially draining each other's life. Eddie feels really happy and light as the parasite is out of his body. After Eddie leaves, Venom escapes through the vents and clutches upon a tiny puppy. Finally, Chris and his men capture Eddie and transport him to Drake.